When I used to go out with John Gotti, I used to go to this club Pastels with him. This was in the 90s. This was in the late 80s, early 90s before he got arrested. There was a club in Brooklyn called Pastels. And in the back of the club was the VIP section, but you could see into the VIP section. And he used to sit at a long table where you could see. And all the girls would be standing and they would all be looking. And I would go out and say, come on, you want to come sit? And they would see me come out. No, I was with him and I would go, come on, you want to come sit with us? And I would bring, to the point where one night he leaned over to me and he says to me, you want to stop bringing girls here? You got enough girls here? I said, yeah, okay, no problem. Because I just kept on bringing them over there. And so it was, and then, it was just a crazy time.
Now that you bring him up, obviously he's one of the most famous men in that life of all time. John Gotti is everywhere, especially nowadays. What was it like going out with him? So when you went out with him to that club, right? What kind of music are they playing? Obviously, it's a different era.
Club music.
Like from the 90s, though, right?
Yeah,
it's not like
80s, dance music. Yeah, it was a disco. It was it was what we called it discos. I don't know if they still call them that, but it was a dance music.
Yeah, and when you guys walk in the room, is everybody like, oh yeah, no, there they are?
It was like being with a major celebrity when you walked in. People used to ask him for his autograph. It was nuts.
Yeah,
it was nuts.
You guys are wearing suit and ties.
And the people that worked there loved us because we were all big tippers.
Right.
So they knew when we walked in, we made their night. Like they knew they were leaving there with money. They knew that when we walked, and that was another thing that opened that. Why we got treated so, because when we walked in restaurants and we walked in clubs, the staff knew we made their night. Like they knew like we were gonna be big tippers and they were gonna make money and they catered to us.
Now, what was like an average bill and what were people walking home with?
Oh my God. It all depends. Like for John, he's drinking Cristal champagne. Right. It was thousands of dollars, you know what I mean? I wasn't drinking then, I was sober at that time, but it was crazy money. I mean, Peter Luger's hundreds of dollars in restaurants, thousands of dollars in clubs, and that was big money back then. And tips, I mean, $100 bills, like tips, like here's 100, here's, like as you're walking down, getting to your table, you're giving out tips, Like when we walked in clubs, like the bartenders, like if we walked into a nightclub and we were going to stay at the bar, like they would actually like make room at the bar, like push people, like move, like give us a section of the bar.
Now, one of the things with that whole thing goes, how much were you ever like, man, I have to carry 5,000, like what was your kind of thing? Just
me personally, back then, I never left my house with less than $1,000 in my pocket. At some point, sometimes more. Yeah, okay, I never had no credit cards. Yeah. I didn't get a credit card till I got remarried. I married this nice, legitimate girl in 1993. And that was the first time I got a credit card. She, it was a spouse card. It was her credit card. She just got me one, with mine. And that was my first credit card. And that was the first time I ever leased a car, too, because I had no credit. I didn't even have a fucking driver's license, right? She made me get a driver's license, Like, she was 100% legit. Like, her father told me when I met him, I was his worst nightmare. That was my first meeting with my father-in-law. Like, he goes, all my life, I prayed my daughter would never marry a street guy. My worst nightmare, he told me. I got out of jail. His daughter's pregnant. I'm out of jail, right? His daughter's having my daughter. I'm sitting in his office. And he was, he owned the wedding center. So he wasn't mobbed up, but he did business with the mob because of his business, And sitting down in his office, and he looked at me and goes, oh, my life, I prayed my daughter would never marry a street guy. You're my worst nightmare. And here I am. No, I don't want nothing from you. I just got out of jail. I'm running my father's number business. I'm in the street. He offered me a business. I turned him down, but what are you gonna do? yeah.
Did you just laugh after that?
Yeah, my wife got nervous because she figured, I was gonna dive over the desk, and I just told him, I said, listen, I'm sorry, I'm sorry you feel that way, but I don't need anything from you. I don't want nothing from you. I'm not here to shake you down. Well, your daughter's, we're having a baby. It's my responsibility. I'll take care of it. And that was it. He wasn't happy. Our family would. Not happy at all, but it was like, we knew each other from the neighborhood. We grew up in the same neighborhood. Matter of fact, she actually sold my first wife her wedding gown. Yeah. And she actually dated my kid brother when we were kids. We went out on a couple of double dates.
Really?
With my first wife and me and Alice and Valerie and my brother. I have pictures of us in the Copa, the father talking in the Copa, and seeing, with my mother and father in the Copa.
Oh, that's
so, as the world turns, and then later on, her and I hooked up and we had a baby. Now I have a beautiful daughter, 30-year-old gorgeous daughter.
Nice. Congrats. What was it like going out, John? Like, you knew him on a personal level. Most people only see him in the movies, in the books and stuff. What was he like as a person when you guys would go out to the nightclub? Like, what was
he was a lot of fun. He was a jokester. He would talk about people, like whisper in my ear, like, talk about people. See, I knew him since I met him, going back a little bit, like when I first left my block and I found out who my father was and I was hanging out in the neighborhood. My father took me to all the clubs then and started introducing me to wise guys when I was like 13. And she took me to the Burger Nut Fish Club and that's the first time I met John. So I knew John before he was really John. Like he was, like before the public knew him, like he was young, he was, he was dangerous, but he was young. He wasn't even made yet. He wasn't even a made member of the Mafia yet. So I knew him then. And, but when he became the Dapper Don, it was how he was fun. He was very charismatic. He liked to party. He liked to joke. He loved food. He loved to go to restaurants and eat. But he could abuse you. He never abused me, but he could verbally whip your ass. Like, yeah, like I saw him like abuse guys to the point where like I was embarrassed for them. Like, you know what I mean? Like, but he was fun. He loved to laugh and drink and hang out and break balls. He was like a regular guy.
So he was a personable person. He wasn't this like stoic, stern, like angry mob boss, right?
Not with us, not at all.
Sometimes they kind of portray it like he was, you know what I mean? Like
he could be. I saw him get angry.
Yeah.
A couple of times. And I had seen him get angry and, like I said, like abuse people verbally.
Yeah.
Like, I'll chop your fucking head off and, stuff like that. But when you were out with him, when I was out like at Pastels or in a restaurant with him, he was fun. It was fine.
Yeah. And he talked to random people when they come up.
Hey, give people his autograph, like.
How crazy was that?
That was nuts. That was, the old timers didn't like that. Like my father and his partner, Tony Lee, like the first time it happened was, Tony Lee had to meet him for lunch. It was a business thing. So I was driving Tony Lee around. It was like 1989, 88, 89. And I was driving he was a main member of he was my father's partner, Tony Lee. Yeah. And I had to drive him. He had a lunch appointment with John in Brooklyn. So I drove him to Brooklyn. We walked into the restaurant and John was sitting at a table with Joe Watts, who was one of John's hitmen. I'm sure you've heard of him. Dangerous guy, German guy, dangerous. Excuse me. So we sat down. I'm sitting here. John was sitting here. Joe Watts and Tony Lee, and we're sitting down. And they're talking about what they got to talk about. We're eating lunch. And a couple came over and said, "Oh, Mr. Gotti, we're so happy to meet you. Could we get your autograph?" And he went, "Oh, yeah, sure, no problem." And he gives them his autograph, and they walk away. And Sammy the Bull talks about this a lot. He actually believed that he had a public. Like we don't have publics. We're in the mob. Mob guys don't have publics. But he really believed and he looked at us and he says, "They love me." He goes, "The public loves me." He goes, "The worst I'll ever get is a hung jury." And he believed that. So he believed by him doing what he was doing, the public loved him and they won't convict him. Like he was promoting, like for the next jury, like planting seeds for the next batch of jurors. And he signed the autograph. And then when we got in the car, Tony Lee and I, to drive home, Tony Lee was beside himself. How the fuck did he do that? There's something wrong with him. And he was like, he was upset, Tony, that he signed the autograph because, old timers, they don't, Carlo Gambino would have never done that. That's for damn sure. Right. But, that's who he was. Right. Me, I was thrilled. I'm like, oh, this is great. It's like, it didn't faze me in the least, but and then we went to see my father in prison and told him, what the is he kidding? Like, but
why did he take?
What's up, guys? I'll just cut to the chase. I made an ebook. It's got over 700 methods and strategies to build your YouTube channel, to get views. It actually works. I made this because over the 3 years prior to this podcast, I bought all the courses, spent thousands of hours watching all these YouTube videos, and none of them actually give you any information. This ebook has 700 plus secret strategies and methods that only top YouTube influencers use. I promise it works. Money back guarantee. Trust me, go buy it now. Half off.